It is. The Bridge of Death.
Oh, great.
Look, there's the old man from scene 24.
What is he doing here?
He is the keeper of the Bridge of Death. He asks each traveler 5 questions. 3 questions. 3 questions. He who answers the 5 questions. 3 questions. 3 questions may cross in safety.
But what if you get a question wrong?
Then you are cast into the gorge of eternal peril.
Oh, wacko.
Who's going to answer the questions? Sir Robin.
Yes?
Brave Sir Robin, you go.
Hey, I've got a great idea. Why doesn't Lancelot go?
Yes, let me go, my liege. I will take it single-handed. I shall make a feint to the northeast.
No,
then
hang on. Just answer the 5 questions.
3 questions.
3 questions as best you can. And we shall watch and pray.
I understand, my liege.
Good luck, brave Sir Lancelot. God be with you.
Stop! Who would cross the Bridge of Death must answer me these questions 3. The other side he see.
Ask me the questions, Bridgekeeper. I am not afraid.
What is your name?
My name is Sir Lancelot of Camelot.
What is your quest?
To seek the Holy Grail.
What is your favorite color?
Blue.
Right, off you go.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
That's easy!
Stop! Who approacheth the Bridge of Death must answer me these questions 3. The other side he see.
Ask me the questions, Bridgekeeper. I'm not afraid.
What is your name?
Sir Robin of Camelot.
What is your quest?
To seek the Holy Grail.
What is the capital of Assyria?
I don't know that.
Stop! What is your name?
Sir Galahad of Camelot.
What is your quest?
I seek the Grail.
What is your favorite color?
Blue. No.
Stop! What is your name?
It is Arthur, King of the Britons.
What is your quest?
To seek the Holy Grail.
What is the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow?
What do you mean? An African or European swallow?
Huh? I don't know that.
Who do you know so much about swallows?
Well, you have to know these things when you're a king, you know.
Painting your dreams in the sunset, looking for the chance to play. Watching the moon in the river, living in old Bombay. Living in old Bombay. Well, I know true love when I found it now. Living in old Bombay. Washing your wing on the shoreline, singing as the treetops sway. Cashing your chips for a living. Living in old Bombay. Living in old Bombay. Said I know true love when I found it now. Living in old Bombay. I had plans to burn. I need to learn. And I think a lot. It is all I do. So my mama living in old Bombay. Living in old Bombay. Crossing your touch on your true love, watching as your fingers play.
Welcome to episode 50 of Every Friday with Dan and Olivia. I'm Dan Miles.
And I'm Olivia Dalbo.
Now, it took me over 3 years to get to 50 episodes on my other show, but we have done it in less than one.
Than 1 year?
Yeah.
Wow.
Let's go ahead right off the top here and bring in Sir Thomas of Bowers.
Tom Whenever.
Welcome.
Did I jump the gun there just a little bit?
That's okay.
I like having my own sounder. I want to pay someone to just like play that whenever I'm going to walk into a room. Just follow me around.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds like a great idea.
Sounds like a better job than some people have. Yeah.
Boy, howdy. So what's on the menu, guys? Why am I here so darn early?
Well, we'll get to that in a second. That we have to acknowledge that for the first time since episode 42, we're not Skyping. We're all sitting in the same room together.
Which is so great.
We're loving that. You know, the thing about Skype, apart from its other pros and cons, I've noticed that once you have the ability to do something at the last minute, you tend to do things at the last minute. A couple of those Skype episodes were posted almost immediately after they were recorded. Definitely something we've never done before. But
They
hey,
were hot off the presses, ripped from the headlines.
Yes, hot cross buns.
they absolutely were. So, on today's show, we're going to be revealing your answers to the questions posed by Olivia, Tom, and myself. With this being episode 50, I was hoping to get at least 50 responses. We got over 60.
Oh, that's lucky.
Yeah, many of our past contributors are back, as well as a ton of newcomers. I consider the approach of taking each listener individually and answering, doing each 3 answers per person, you're passing it around. But I think it'd be more effective just to stay on one question at a time and read all the replies related to that one subject so we can focus on it one at a time instead of darting around. And I thought we'd go ahead and start off with mine, which was, if you could live anywhere in the world other than where you're currently living, where would you live and why? So let's dive right into that as I open that long-ass list on my laptop. Here we go. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and start things off by checking in with our Twitter followers. I have to admit, I probably should have jumped on Twitter a little sooner. I eventually put us on Stitcher and did a Twitter, but you got like 11,000 followers over there. I should have been tapping into that market a little earlier.
That would be the end of the show. Would just be questions every Friday with Dan and Olivia. That would be how it went.
Exactly. Well, we had 10 Twitter followers check in. 6 are new and 4 contributed last time. So let's hear what they have to say about where they would live. Grace Charles. Grace says she would move to Alaska. She says because the heat in Florida is killing her. So yeah, I guess if you live in Florida, maybe Alaska sounds appealing. Whoa. I talk about me being the blue whale.
I imagine there are going to be a few of those where it's like, whatever it is that's not where I am now.
Exactly.
Opposite day.
Yeah, well, yeah, that nobody says, hey, I live in the Southwest. I want to move to the Southwest. Jeff Garland, our friend Jeff Garland, he says he'd go to Hawaii because life is a beach.
Good answer.
Margaret Elmore, she went with, I guess this is pronounced Juma, South Africa, D-J-U-M-A.
We have listeners from South Africa?
No, she's in Canada. She just says she'd go to South Africa.
I was just going to say, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really cool that she's in Canada too, but...
Any listeners in South Africa, please make us aware of you. Yeah, Juma, South Africa, she says it has magnificent wildlife, fantastic friendly people, and incredibly fascinating cultures. So there you go. 1 vote for South Africa. Heather Haberman. Now we're getting into the new people. Heather, she said she'd go to Borneo to help with orangutan rescue. She says, I love all animals, but primates interest me the most. So you have to introduce her to Ron Nelson. If I had the means, I would live there and help with the rescue and rehabilitation efforts. As of now, I donate to their causes from the States. Chris Hunt Stanton, he says, the United Kingdom, so I can go out more and meet people. Rachel Trevis, New York. I guess she means New York City. She says New York. Says, I visited a few times over the years, but I never lived there. Why live there, you ask? Because the nightlife is fantastic, from the clubs to the amazing theater scene to the restaurants in New York are wonderful and cater for people who have food allergies like me. So, my sister-in-law has a food allergy too, so I know that's important to those people to have some
absolutely.
options and selections. Okay, staying here with their Twitter followers, Gary Gibson, the king of the GIF. He's real quick with his Twitter content. He's a funny dude. He's very tuned into all of our posts. And Gary's a good guy. He says he would move to Hawaii to get away from the Michigan cold winters and the humid summers. He said, I would love a constant, less humid temperature. I'm thinking Hawaii sounds like a good fit for him. We've got Adi Ibendare. She said, I would probably want to live in Stockholm, Sweden, because it's my absolute favorite place on earth. I'd be surrounded by the blue and green of the sea and the forests at all times, with upbeat nightlife, great music, amazing culture, and beautiful, hospitable people. I love my country, Israel, but it's kind of insane here with all the drama. So, Israel to Stockholm sounds like a little bit of a swing. Shane Thomas, another Twitter guy who's been promoting our show on the internet, which is nice of him. Thank you, Shane.
Thank you, Shane.
He says, I would live in New York Colony immediately prior to the signing of the Declaration of Independence. I'd fight alongside Alexander Hamilton, my hero.
Whoa.
I knew Tom would get his ire up.
All right, now...
This person has tweaked the question.
The question was, where would you live, not when would you live? Time and space are different things. Now, it depends on, I know, theory of relativity and all that, but the only reason I'm upset is because that blows a question for a future date. You know, we could have asked people, when would you live? When would you live? But no, now we can't. Shane, thank you.
Yeah, actually, do you think that was a more interesting question? When would you live?
I think Shane did not listen to our pet peeve episode.
It's whatever you want it to be. That's the kind of audience we have.
Where Tom specifically said my pet peeve is when you ask someone a question and they create a third option that you didn't.
And that's like entirely hypocritical of me, because that's like my almost entire life is based on the idea of breaking the question. But, you know, play within the boundaries of the sandbox. No, Shane, I'm kidding. It was great, and we hope that everyone forgets so we can ask that question
I will
again
also
later.
say only 2 people tweaked the question. One of them was your guy, Travis J. Coleman. He did it in a little different way. Shane's the only person who added when to his where. So let me finish what he said. He said, I live in New York Colony immediately prior to the signing of the Declaration of Independence. I'd fight alongside Alexander Hamilton, my hero, and attempt to find a way to prevent Aaron Burr from killing Hamilton. I'd also seek the hand of Angelica Schuyler. From a historian's perspective, a woman I have admired since I was in primary school. I'd also get to see the signing of the United States Constitution. So, yes, Shane did go within the time travel thing. Let's hook him up with a DeLorean.
Boy, if Shane also likes R&B and hip-hop, boy, can I recommend a show for him. Anyway.
Yeah, that involve a hot tub.
I'm guessing he's heard of it.
Okay, one last Twitter, Michael Hargis. Poor Michael. This poor guy. If you recall, when we put the show on hiatus, we did a very short episode called We'll Be Right Back. And Dave Shaneholtz did some kind of software update to our site right before he did that. And the developer guy there was some glitch, and our site went down for like a couple days.
Thus making the episode title deeply ironic.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I told Dave that sucks for that to happen at all. But if it had to happen, this is the most appropriate time. Well, unfortunately, Michael had just discovered our show and was going through the back catalog and having a great old time. And then, boom, the show was gone all of a sudden. So, yeah, it was only 48 hours, maybe 72 hours. But I felt bad for the guy. I felt like I'd taken away his crack pipe. I mean...
Yeah, in geek circles, we call that the Firefly Syndrome.
He was really missing the show. So we're sorry, Michael. We didn't do it to you on purpose. We didn't set you up with the show and then yank out the rug. So... his answer to the question, he says, I like 4 seasons, but maybe less winter than where I am. I have to have the 4 seasons. You have to see the colors in Northern Ontario, but less winter. So, yeah, that's kind of a tough order. Go to a place with 4 seasons and kind of control the mildness of the winter. But, hey, there you go. So, as I said, we're sort of building our fan base on Twitter, but most of those people I think all those people I just met, come to the show from the Olivia Dabo side of things, or Olivia Dabo, or Olivia Diabo, or Delabo, or anything else you guys can come up with. But yeah, let's move on to Facebook. We have 20 returning answerers from Facebook and 32 newcomers. So we have 12 more newbies than we do returning people. So I'm going to do the returning people first. Amy Brown. She would live in the Walt Disney World area. She says the reason is obvious. Well, it's Orlando, Florida. I guess if you like Walt Disney, it's obvious. If you don't, maybe a little less.
Lots of alligators.
Yeah, that's a little problem lately, huh? Our super fan, she summed it all up right there. And the reason is obvious, lots of alligators.
No, I love alligators. What are you talking about? And I love Orlando. I think it's great. I've worked there.
Yes, well.
There's lots of SeaWorld and Disney there.
Heads up, Amy. Go there.
And zingers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go there, Amy, but watch out for alligators. Amy's in Delaware now. Okay, Shell Beckwith, a.k.a. Bootsy Bass, one of our super fans. He says London, England, or anywhere in England for that matter. I'm a history geek, and England is full of the history that I've studied. Royalty, architecture, Shakespeare, the big three for me. Then there's all the 60s music history that changed my life as a kid. The Beatles and The Who are my two favorite bands, and they spent a lot of their time in the London area. Then there's Stratford and Stonehenge, and so much more. Well, definitely, if you're a tourist in London, you're going to hit all that stuff. As far as living there, yeah, it's nice.
It's expensive.
Yeah. Orlando is alligators. London is expensive. We're keeping track. Mike Jacobs in Philly. He says, I actually like the climes of where I live, southeast Pennsylvania, although less winter would be nice. That's our second less winter person. He says it has a bit of all the seasons and is generally free of tornadoes, earthquakes, floods, dangerous fauna, or insects. That said, if they could move Vermont into a more temperate zone, I'd probably live there. Here's a person who wants a state to move. So I'm not moving, but if you can move Vermont, I love that. Great answer.
I understand if you go down to the basement, there's a big wheel, and then you just turn and turn.
Now, where's Vermont rolling off to? Oh, where did you take Vermont again? Connecticut. Joe Quezada, one of my Arizona homies, said, I'd like to live somewhere in Hawaii for the fresh air, the sunsets and sunrises, but minus the food and the natural scary weather. Ever since I visited, I knew it was meant to be.
And the bugs the size of your head.
Yeah, when I was in Maui, I mean, every time you turn around, there'd be something climbing on the wall or running across the praying mantis this big or a gecko or what have you. Ron Nelson, the aforementioned Ron Nelson, lover of primates. He says, I would say Oahu, Waikiki, Hawaii. I've been there twice. I love the weather. As far as temperatures, the jungle island feel, but in town you have all the modern technology in stores, fast food, etc. Plus there are no snakes in Hawaii, the only animal I dislike.
It's because the bugs ate them all.
It's because there's no snakes native to Hawaii, and so they've said, let's keep it that way.
Is that really true?
That's true. There's no snakes there native, and they don't let you bring them in.
Wow.
So if you're wandering in the, he's got a great point. If you're going to the bamboo forest or something, never have to worry about a snake. And if you do see one, someone broke the law. They quarantine dogs and cats before they let them in. It's, it's not to be difficult. It's an isolated island community. And let's face it, they got that whole leprosy thing that happened nowadays.
I wasn't aware that it was such a closed ecosystem. That's interesting.
It is. I think it rose up from volcanic ash. It's like Australia, like it was off on doing its own thing and had all the... Yes, similar. Okay. Patty Miller. She says Ireland. Or should we say... Olivia can give us a good pronunciation of Ireland. How would you say it?
Ireland.
I knew you'd come through. Okay.
Or something like that. I'm not sure. Sometimes that's...
You're the master of accents on the show, not me. She says, it's my heritage. The landscape is gorgeous, and the people are so warm and welcoming. Bob Wilson, our Live for Live music friend, he says Iceland. He says...
Iceland's badass.
He says they bailed out the people and punished the moneylenders. That's true.
And they're just amazing looking people, too. They're, like the way Brazilians are. They're just very... the sort of dark-haired Viking-looking people. Yeah, he says in Iceland they bailed out the people and they punished the moneylenders. We're here, they bailed out the moneylenders and we all suffered. He says, and I want to see its natural beauty. So he likes the way they do things there, and he likes its natural beauty. Larry Ganny, host of the Guest Room podcast. I think I choose to live in London, mainly because I'm such a fan of the music that came from the UK. I actually enjoy foggy, overcast weather. I've heard that's kind of untrue, that it really isn't foggy there. That London fog is kind of incorrect. It was more so during the Industrial Revolution, like in the 1830s, but yeah, it subsided pretty much.
And his final thought, he says, I think it'd be fun to learn to drive on the other side of the road. Some person might think fun. I kind of think kind of scary. My dad told me when he lived there, because I was born there, when he was there briefly, once you get on the open road and there's no other cars, he says he'd find himself drifting. He'd find himself drifting.
Yeah.
It's only natural. Gino Fratto, he says, where to live? The Hollywood Hills. I think I can just about see him out the window right there.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed. You can see the Hollywood sign from our balcony on a clear day.
Yes.
Travis J. Coleman, Tom's cousin and podcasting partner, he split the question in half. He says, in the U.S., I would choose northwestern Montana, as it is gorgeous and cool weather. I don't know if he means cool temperature or, hey, this is cool weather, man. Cool weather. You'll have to ask him that on probably temperature.
I'll be sure to demand a clarification next time we get together.
And then he doesn't go forward or backward in time, but he says, in the world, I would choose Italy because I love the small towns and the food is amazing. So You can relax your pet peeve. Those are the only two people who tweaked the answer. And Travis he basically said, hey, they're international and sticking around here. Jesse Solomon, previous guest on the Friends of Dan Music podcast, a hot chat guitarist out of Colorado, who I met through Jennifer Batten. He says, I have it too good here in Colorado, but I suppose I would enjoy London. We're trending because of the pubs, abundant music, and access to travel. That's a thought, in London, say your gateway to Paris and True. Scandinavia and everywhere else. Our Peter Sellers artist, Paula Brewer, also famous for her Snot Rocket reference.
What? What is that?
Snot Rockets, you don't remember that? Her was her pet peeve, Snot Rockets.
Oh, is that? I think I remember.
It's when people
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. Yeah, how could I forget? Yes.
So
it's like suppressing trauma.
Exactly.
Why did you have to remind
Snot Rocket coming?
That's right.
Flashback.
She says the Bahamas. She says a relaxed life on the beach, selling souvenirs to tourists. Okay, sounds doable. Mark Herrick, loyal listener of the show, both shows, meaning my other one and this, and possibly Tom's. He's a podcast fan. He says Pullman it's located in southeastern Washington, surrounded by beautiful rolling wheat fields. The population of Pullman is around 32,000, which for me is not too large and not too small. First person who's mentioned population. Washington State University is located there, and the University of Idaho is only 10 miles away, so there's a wealth of culture and educating going on in the area. He actually put educating with the apostrophe, going as well. Pullman experiences all 4 seasons, yet still remains a mild climate with an average low of 26 degrees in January and average high of 84 in August. Yeah, if your high in the summer is 84, it's not too bad. 26 is sub-freezing, but hey, it's winter. Says there are plenty of rivers and lakes in the area, which I greatly miss. I happen to know he lives in Tucson. In fact, I drove to Tucson to meet him, and that was a fun day. I grew up in Iowa, where water was abundant, but currently live in the dry Arizona desert. Pullman, Washington is situated close to places I would visit multiple times when I was younger. The places I long to see again, places like Glacier National Park, my voice cracked. What am I, 13? Glacier National Park, the Columbia River Gorge, U.S. Route 12.
I don't know, Dan, are you?
Yeah, well, I would imagine since I have a 9-year-old, probably not. Yellowstone National Park. These are some reasons I might live in Pullman, Washington, if I could live anywhere. I actually drove through Pullman once, but didn't really pay attention to the town. Instead, I was overwhelmed by the magnificent rolling wheat fields surrounding it. So it's true, you want to consider things like wheat fields, all you people who are only about the beach and city culture. Brian Booty, he says, I would probably stay where I am long term. Wisconsin has much to offer. But I'd like to sample living in different areas of the country because it seems each area is so different. And people who don't, come to the States don't really realize he's right. Like Texas is almost like its own nation compared to like the Northeast or compared to some of the other places that have been mentioned. Sure. He didn't commit to any particular place though. Ken Reed, our friend Ken Reed, he picks Los Angeles. He says,
he really likes it here.
He says
I just had dinner with him the other night and his wife are lovely.
Nice. Well, we got answers from her too on this.
She's great.
Yes, he says Los Angeles, he says it's where all the good food, people, and weather are. Well, it's not where all the good people are, Ken, because you don't live here. So what's up, man? Okay, let's see. Oh, I don't live here either. Oh, guys, I just insulted myself. Let's see. Katie Mackey, she says, I'd love to be in L.A. or Atlanta right now where the action is currently. And she's an actress, so L.A. and Atlanta. She's in Miami, I happen to know. She says, however, I believe everything happens for a reason, and I'm where I am now for a reason. So...
Very true.
Oh, yes, because you bought a place there.
And I know she gets acting work in Miami. I've seen her reels and stuff. Okay, Robert Collier. I go back to the 70s with that dude in Germany. He says, Central America. He says it's cheap, laid back, no stress, lacks building and safety requirements. Hold up here. Lacks building and safety requirements. Now, is he coming at it from a builder's point of view?
That's a good point? That's a selling point?
Well, I'm wondering, does he come at it from a tenant's point of view? I would think that lacks safety in building. I mean, I know what he means. I've gone into Mexico and you can immediately tell there's no Food and Drug Administration. Like the cars are spewing out fumes and people are cooking meat on the road. It's a whole different type of thing. I was wondering if somebody was going to go Costa Rica or something, and nobody did Central or South America. Not to be a spoiler, but Robert was one of our later repliers, and when he said Central America, I thought, oh, but I figured there'd be at least one, because I know a lot of people who've retired to Costa Rica because they speak English there, and because cost of living is lower and it's tropical, etc. Okay, this is our last returning Facebook before we get to the new people. Alan Sosa. I would love somewhere in the English countryside.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been, but I've always felt a calling there.
It's great. It's a great place to live.
So I would say, Hawaii and London were trending. And also the whole Hamilton, Aaron Burr thing. It's always nice to have stuff out of left field. It won't be the first time tonight. Now, Mitch Weissman, who's the next person, he was disappointed that he didn't contribute to the last one. He said, definitely next time you do one. And
we are too, Mitch. Very disappointed.
Is Mitch a guitarist? Is he a musician?
Mitch was the original Paul McCartney in the original cast of Beatlemania on Broadway.
Okay. I think he's a friend of...
He knows you.
Yeah, I know.
He knows you from the You and Julian era.
Yeah,
yes.
we're Facebook friends.
That's right. And he's big into... As soon as he found out you and I did a show together, he kind of knew who I was, but he definitely knew who you were. When he saw we did the show together, he just jumped on that. He's been on board ever since.
Cool.
Well, Mitch lives here in L.A. In fact, he works at Sam Ash. He says, I would probably move back to New York City. It's a city that I love, and it stays in my heart always. It was the scene of some of my
heart.
It was a scene of some of my greatest success and some of my greatest failure. And yet at the same time, it's still a magical and positive place. If I could afford how to live there, it would make all the difference in the world. And yeah, when I was in the 8th grade, that show Beatlemania hit the Winter Garden Theater. And what we did, a lot of people wanted to go as soon as possible. Me and my friends, we wanted to sit in as good a seat as possible. So we waited. It had been out for 2 or 3 months before we went. And I remember Mitch from that, but I especially remember him from the local TV commercial, the commercial for the play. Because it was him playing Yesterday. And gosh, the dude looks and sounds, particularly then, he looks and sounds exactly like Paul McCartney.
Wow.
Good dude.
Thanks. Check that out.
Thanks for kicking in, Mitch. Also, he was on an episode of, I think it was Joni Loves Chachi in the 70s. He was a dude who everybody thought was Paul McCartney, but really wasn't. They just assumed he was. They treated him like he goes, I'm not Paul McCartney, right? So go look it up. The whole episode is on YouTube. Go check it out. It's hilarious. Okay, moving on. Gil Baker, filmmaker Gil Baker. He's making a cool movie about musical sidemen. He had a one-word answer. He said, Amsterdam. I'm wondering if Amster stuck into the... I was trying to say answer, and I said Amster.
I thought you said Hamsterdam.
Amsterdam.
Oh, that's a whole other thing. Although I imagine
that's another question. Well, it's another answer.
Although I imagine there's somewhere in Amsterdam where you can probably get that service performed.
So I'm going to apologize to Gil for brutalizing and making a mess of his answer and question.
I'm sorry.
Although it went into an interesting... I think Richard Gere is the spokesman for that, but we'll move on. Okay. Next, one of the smartest people I know, and absolutely one of the funniest, and host of the Stuff File program and recent guest on one of Tom's other shows, The Spoon, Peter Anthony Holder. He says Australia. Oh, let's get it from you. Can you say Australia?
Australia.
There you go. I should make you say all the cities. He says, from my perspective as a Canadian, it is a very similar country when it comes to social issues and quality of life. It is also still a Commonwealth country. Though I've never been there, it has always intrigued me. I think he's not alone in that. From an entertainment perspective, it has a thriving music, television, and movie industry. It's what Canada would be if we weren't so heavily influenced by the influx of American media, he said while watching NFL Thursday Night Football. And I didn't add that. He added that in parentheses. Yeah, he's one of my podcasting heroes. He is like, and Tom's met him recently on the show. He's like so smooth.
Indeed, very cool guy.
And very excellent interviewer. He can interview anybody about anything, and knowledgeable guy. He does the news broadcasts in Canada, in Montreal. He's a news guy, and he does his own podcast on the side.
I'm going to say Australia really quick, okay? This is a thing for the listeners.
Do it.
If anyone can point out, this is me saying Australia. I can't say it in an Australian accent because I'm bad at an Australian accent. Every time I say it, it just comes out sounding Cockney. And then I try to speak in a Cockney accent and it comes out sounding Welsh. And then I try to speak in a Welsh accent and it comes out sounding like Virginia. It's very strange. But Australia. Okay, for those of you who know that reference, go ahead and post it on the Every Friday Facebook group, and there will be a special secret prize. It's very specific. You have to get it exactly right.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, thank you for
I don't
that.
mean to derail the show. If I really wanted to derail the show, I would have gone on this whole tangent about how you said GIF earlier. But we're not going to let it go.
Why did you say GIF?
I know the GIF-GIF battle, the GIF-GIF debate. Some people say it should be pronounced GIF. Some people say it should be pronounced GIF. So I just wanted to blow through it. Gary Gibson put up what it is it's a graphic where you do a little silent movie. You've seen the ones he's put up. He's done a bunch of.
It's a file extension, whatever.
Yeah.
.gif.
Oh, right.
.gif. Right.
Yeah.
Some people call them GIF. Some people call them GIF. So I wanted to avoid the whole thing. But Tom didn't take us on that tangent, as he did take us on the tangent. Clever work over there.
It's some podcasting jujitsu is what I do.
I know some people. I knew about the issue. I tried to sidestep it, but damn it, Tom didn't let me. Back to the list. David Norris, friend of mine, very talented Nashville producer who I actually had dinner with. We're speaking of people we had dinner with. I had dinner with him in Nashville not long ago. He says, I would have to say Switzerland, because not only is it a beautiful country, but
it's neutral.
But they never go to war.
Yeah. No, definitely.
There you go. That's nice. David Olivia contributed in the middle of that sentence, and it was apropos. He says it's a beautiful country and they never go to war. She stuck neutral right in the middle of the sentence.
Warning shot across the bow.
No, it wasn't a warning shot. I thought it was cool because it was almost as if she knew what I was going to say. It's neutral. Right? Boom. Okay.
I just wanted to interrupt.
No, please do. I mean, I'm getting tired of listening to the sound of my own voice as we move on to the next. This is the reason we didn't do 3 Dan questions this time, because I'm going to pass the torch. I'm going to pass that baton off. Okay, Don Breitup, previous FOD guest, local LA guy by way of Toronto. We featured his music on the show before. In fact, it was on Rise of the Honey Badger, which is the last time we did listener questions. Don Breitup. He says, the answer to this question hasn't changed since I was about 16. New York City. The quality of the day-to-day musical goings-on, the architecture, the history, the palpable vibe, the literary scene, the park, the neighborhoods, the 24/7 energy. Paris is a close second, but for most of the same reasons. So there you go. He's a cosmopolitan kind of guy. And his wife, recent marriage, she is French, so there you go. Travis Clark, he says, I want to live a lot of different places. If I had to settle on one, my current go-to is Hawaii. After years of wanting to go there, once I arrived, it exceeded all my expectations. Island time, brah. So he learned brah. I wonder if he also learned mahalo. And hey, if anybody wants to do a tangent or a peeve or a gif or a gif or say Australia, jump in. Michael Urbano, professional studio drummer, another previous FOD guest. He says Italy. I work there a lot. The place is pure magic. Funny thing about Michael is he lives in the Bay Area. He lives in Berkeley. And one of the biggest music stars of Italy, his producer lives in Michael's area. And Michael was just playing drums and all this guy's stuff, just hired him as a studio drummer. Luciano Ligabue is the guy's name. And he heard it and goes, he invited him to come out and tour. And Michael goes, oh, that sounds fun. And the producer goes, no, you don't understand. This is like a big thing. And he gets there, and this dude, he's like the U2 or the Pink Floyd of Italy. He like sells out stadiums for 2 or 3 nights in a row.
Wow.
And Michael has like become famous in Italy. And he just, I don't know, I'll play drums in here. Whoa! It's like, all of a sudden he's like, he's got the whole Paul McCartney camera.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's cool. We talk about that when he's on my show. Here's a Weisenheimer answer. I told Tom this one before we got started while we were waiting for Olivia. Mark Bonilla, another Friends of Dan guest. We played some of Mark's music. He scored the movie you did with Henry Winkler. Remember we played that little theme he wrote for your character, Charisse?
Yeah, definitely.
He says, if I could live anywhere else, I'd live next door because they have NFL Sunday Ticket. So he's not too ambitious. If he could live anywhere else, he'd live next door. Mark is LA. Well, he's from the Bay Area, but he's an LA guy now. Does a lot of movie soundtracks and stuff. Fletcher Roden, author, screenwriter, member of the Spoon Clique. I know Tom knows Fletcher.
Indeed.
Tight with Robbie Wrist. He said, if I could live anywhere in the world, I think Malibu would be my call. It's close enough to my family and friends in LA, but still one of the most beautiful spots on earth. For all of LA's pluses, it's just not a pretty city. Now, for me, I kind of think of Malibu as LA. I don't know, whatever.
And I think of it as pretty.
Yeah.
Maybe we all have different definitions of that word.
Don't be saying our city's not pretty.
And Fletcher's local. All 3 of us can go find him right now, track him down. So.
Fletcher. Yeah, he's totally trying to answer a question and we're like ganging up on him.
Well, he's trying to say, I forget LA, I want to go to Malibu. And for people like me who aren't from here, it's like Malibu, all these places, it's like, it is all LA does. I don't know the city proper. Just like in New York, it's the boroughs. I get where he's coming from. It's cool. I appreciate the answer. Yeah, Malibu, great answer. When I was in high school, my car was a Malibu. Chevelle Malibu was one of my favorite words. Let's go over to Europe. Uwe Wright, a longtime friend of mine, longtime podcast supporter. He lives in Germany. He says, I would love to live in Stockholm, Sweden. That's our second Stockholm. He says, because of their extraordinary taste in music and their friendly hospitality. Okay, I thought there was more to that, but I realized I accidentally cut and pasted his answer to a different question. I'm glad I stopped myself short of doing that.
Dope.
Yeah, that's...
When he says their taste in music, does that mean the local music, or does that mean the music that they import and listen to on the radio?
He probably means concert venues and stuff. Because he lives in Germany. He goes. I know he has a friend, Mikael Engström. We both have a friend who lives in Sweden. I know he goes there to see him, and yeah, that's an interesting distinction.
Because there are some Swedish artists that have crossed over into international appeal, but I'm wondering if they have a really vibrant local scene that we just don't know about.
I don't think he means Swedish artists. I think he means when he's in Sweden, he likes the musical vibe of the place.
Okay.
That's like when you go to Memphis or Nolens or something. Be my guess. Now, speaking of the aforementioned Robbie Rist, the overhost of The Spoon, I think you guys call him.
Yes.
Robbie says, if I could live anywhere, somewhere tropical, with insects the size of one's head. So he didn't even hear us talking.
Did he really say that?
Yep.
The insects the size of one's head.
Yes.
So he'd be into sort of a Jurassic Park themed, sort of like somewhere where I imagine going down this cavernous kind of cliffs. Like that opening shot in Jurassic Park, and then suddenly a pterodactyl comes and clips you around the ear.
I think Robbie would go for that. He's into blood and gore.
Yeah, sure.
That's Maui, by the way.
Danger. Yeah.
The pterodactyls too.
You should talk to the guy who wants to live in Hawaii.
Right. Exactly. Well, here's an interesting one because this person is based in London, where everybody seems to want to go. This is Gabriella Swallow, who's a cellist for Judith Owen. She picks L.A. She says it's nice not to be the loudest person in the room for once. I guess when she's in the UK, because she is a boisterous kind of, very vivid kind of person. I guess she feels like in LA she fits more, and more people like her.
Right.
And I know it's subtleties. She's a classical musician, and she's not too crazy. But, it's one of the things I've noticed is, people who. Well, then again, I did phrase the question if you had to live somewhere else. So, I'm sure there are people who live in these places who wouldn't want to go, but I forced them to move. Kira Ratliff, she says, I would like to live in a small-ish town that never gets too hot or too cold, and tend to my flowers and sip tea on the front porch while visiting with neighbors. So I guess I'm looking for Mayberry.
Interesting.
She's jumping realities, too.
That sounds like a series. It sounds like a,
It's the Kira Ratliff Show. With Crazy Bill. Yeah, as soon as she said front porch and sipping, I think the South.
Sipping iced tea.
Where was
Mint juleps.
Where was Forrest Gump and Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil?
Yeah. That was Louisiana, right?
No, it was Savannah, Georgia.
Savannah, Georgia, yeah.
Savannah,
I love
Georgia.
that movie.
Yeah, but that kind of place, I'm thinking. Maybe. Robbie Bickford is next. He lives in Sacramento. I know him from Sacramento from my very earliest band days. Very talented guitar player, Robbie. He says, I'd have to choose Hawaii. I love that climate, and I love to snorkel. The beautiful fishes are some of God's best artwork. Good answer. Sue Broussard. Most of the world knows her as Susan Cowsill, but out of respect for her husband, Russ Broussard, I like to call her Sue Broussard. Technically, that's her legal name.
But not out of cherishing her husband. That's a whole other thing.
I'm
sorry.
Don't be jumping
I'm
the
sorry.
timeline.
That's a guarantees. That's a call forward.
Oh, yeah, call forward.
We'll get to that.
True enough. Well, I almost did one, too, when I started to read Uwe's answer to Olivia's question. It was on here, accidentally. A laugh and a microphone kick. So, Susan Cowsill, a.k.a. Sue Broussard, another guest. That was one of my favorite Friends of Dan's I've ever done, actually, my talk with her. In fact, the opening music we played, Old Bombay, is her brother, the late Barry Cowsill, who sadly perished in the Hurricane Katrina. He drowned in that, which is very sad. So he mentioned Old Bombay. I was curious to see if anybody picked India. Spoiler alert, nobody picked Bombay.
Susan, I wonder why.
I don't know.
Is it smelly?
Poverty, I don't know, danger, overpopulation.
Why?
We're picking on you, Bombay.
Prostitution? Any particular reason?
I don't think that's I think Barry probably wrote the song because he liked the way the word fit. Looking for old Bombay, looking for old Hilo, Hawaii. That's some.
Didn't rhyme.
I want to move to Bombay because I like the rhythmic assonance.
That's right, and because it's got bomb in it. I like to get bombed alcohol-wise, but not necessarily. That's a call back, so not necessarily bombing. I don't see anybody picking Lebanon either. I've noticed. Okay. Anyways, poor Susan.
Lebanon.
We didn't even get to her answer. Susan's answer was just 2 words. She said high Sierras. So
that sounds nice.
Yeah, she went up in the mountains. Nevada border. I could see that. Nate Morton, drummer for NBC's The Voice. We featured Nate's music on the show. His song Writer's Block we played. He says Seattle. He says it's awesome. It's grungy and green. And if you're wondering where I got Hilo, Hawaii from, my eyes looked on the page. Blaine Bowman picked Hilo, Hawaii.
I'm wondering why nobody's not mentioned Oregon, because that's such a great place to live, and the soil is the most fertile.
We're not done yet.
Okay.
I
wonder if anyone
Somebody
will.
mentioned Washington State, and it's closest we've gotten. Blaine says Hilo, Hawaii. He says my mom was born there, though that's not why. I learned about Hilo from my grandmother, Tutu in Hawaiian. My wife and I have visited Hilo several times, and quite simply, it feels like home, like I belong. 2 or 3 people have made that comment, the feeling you get in a certain place. He says the pace is slow, the people are genuine, and it's off the beaten path. That's also come up a little bit, too. Some people want the big city and the culture. Some people are like, hey, great, maybe I'll come visit that when I get a week's vacation, but I want the porch, like sipping the tea, like Kira says. Paul Wells... And keep in mind, all these people, ever since Mitch Weissman, have been newbies. So thank you guys for kicking in. Paul Wells, he says, I like where I live, Sacramento, because my family is here, the weather's good, and I'm close to the mountains and the ocean. But if I could bring them all with me, and money was ample, then I choose Italy. Due to the lifestyle, climate, and things to do, as well as them having a rich artistic community and heritage. And yes, Italy has been mentioned and will continue to be mentioned. And I visited Roma and Firenze myself, Florence. And I can say that's a pretty amazing place. Ed Wallach, professional comedian who contributed his observations to our alcohol episode, one of the people who did that. He says Japan. He says, I've always been interested in Eastern philosophy. I'm a Buddhist, philosophically. I don't believe in deification. And I've studied Aikido for 25 years. Also, as I'm only 5'9", I could be tall for once in my existence. So
That's a good reason.
He wants to go to a country where he's above average in height. There you go. Now, somebody recently mentioned Oregon. Let's see what this next person says. Chris Robley. He says, part of me thinks London because I spent 10 days there a few years back and everything felt familiar and very much like home, despite me never having been there previously. I knew my way around. I met people that seemed like old friends. It was a wonderfully strange trip. But the truth is I'd probably move to Portland, Oregon, since that actually was home for 11 years and I miss it and my friends there quite a bit. Even though I still visit a few times a year. He works for CD Baby. CD Baby is based in Portland. And I think for family reasons he moved to Maine. It was funny because he stayed in Portland. Portland, Oregon. Portland, Maine. So yeah, that's another factor too. If somebody could move. Because I mentioned before, some people live where they do for financial reasons. Some for, and it's all they've ever known. Some for family reasons. And yeah, so one reason to go to a place is there's people there who you miss and everything. Shane Farmer. He says, I'd like to live in Beersheba, Israel again. It was exciting to live in the Holy Land. A little dangerous, but very cool. Dawn Papagoda, she says, anywhere in Italy. Aside from the breathtaking views, I'd be able to enjoy the experience of tasting a wide variety of wines and delicious cheeses. Because we have no wine and cheese in the States. You got to go to Italy for that. No, I was kidding. Just teasing you, Don. She lives in...
just no delicious wine and cheese.
Oh, that's true. Well,
spectacular
maybe it's
wine and cheese.
Maybe it's more delicious and spectacular when you experience it in that country. John Champion, host of Mission Log podcast and former guest of Friends of Dan Music podcast.
Oh, no. It's the wine and cheese police. Crap.
And as we wait for this to pass...
He got our number.
If we're really going to... We knew we weren't being able to do this as a single show. Now I'm beginning to wonder if it's going to be 3 shows. Anyways, John Champion, he has a unique answer. He says, if I could live anywhere at all, it would probably be in the Grand Duplex Suite on the Queen Mary 2. Hands down. 2 floors, the best amenities, the best food, and every amazing location in the world at my front door. So John wants to go on a cruise ship, get the nicest, suite, the duplex suite, and just let it take him places.
That's actually really
That's
cool.
a really good idea. It's total good ship lollipop mentality.
And that's a breaking of the question that gets my stamp of approval.
I think that we have to do a whole show on that. I'm sorry, but that's my next topic.
We need to do a show from a cruise ship at some point.
We do. We really do. Wait. That's just genius.
John Champion has a Thurston Howell vibe, and he knows this. I've seen him dressed up in that type of look. So yeah, great answer.
What type of look?
With the cap and the like yachtsman kind of look.
Oh really?
And the pipe and talking like this.
Oh wow.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, there he goes. He likes the aquatic thing. So yeah, that's an interesting thought. You live on a ship and let it carry you around.
That's great.
Okay.
That's living.
J.K. Northrup. He says, "I would live in Scotland." Oh, can you give us a Scotland?
Scotland.
I like it. Okay. We're gonna take Ireland, Australia, and Scotland, and just clip them together, and that's just gonna be some little bumper we'll use for something. Your pronunciations of those words, and I think it'd be cool. You can put it on your demo reel
Just because I can.
Yeah, when you want to get a voice gig, you go, I can say these 3 words with these 3 accents. Okay. He says, I would live in Scotland by Loch Ness so I could watch for the monster to appear. This has been my dream since childhood. I have my Polaroid ready. So whether he actually wants to go live in Loch Ness and look for the monster or he's screwing with us, I can't say.
I think he's got a better chance of seeing the monster than actually getting, more Kodak film for that Polaroid camera.
I was thinking that too. That's a little bit of a dated reference there, Mr. Northrup.
I just have one question for you. Why not Sasquatch?
Well, good question. I mean, he's from Redding, California, and, that's kind of like up in the mountains there. He might be... It's not exotic enough.
I'm kidding. It's just that they're always compared, those two.
They're the two that got away.
Maybe he's seen Sasquatch already, and he's just hungry for new. Maybe he is Sasquatch.
I'm telling you. Okay, well we had Tom Spoon overhost, so we have to get Tom Spoon underhost, which is Chris Jackson.
Chris.
He says, I would live back in Los Angeles. I love it there, and I miss my friends Robbie and Tom a considerable amount.
Oh,
Chris.
Thank you, Christopher.
And, this is my note. Chris Robley wants to move back to his friends. Chris Jackson wants to move from the East Coast. He's in New York now. He wants to move back. If your name's Chris, be careful where you move. You may have regrets.
Like the swallows returning to Capistrano. Or is it from? I can never remember.
Yes.
That's very sweet, Chris. Thank you. I miss you too.
Kevin Rankin. He says, I'd love to have a place on the big island of Hawaii. Beauty, climate, solitude, all in one.
Pineapple.
They got some pineapple and coconut up in there. I've heard about that. Yeah.
Did you say up in there?
Well, up in the state. I said that. I didn't think what you just thought.
No, I didn't think what you thought that I just thought.
You must have.
You are totally digressing down a path that is not a good idea in Bombay, my friend. No.
Moving right along, Leo Sidran, host of the Third Story podcast. He's from Madison, Wisconsin. He lives in Brooklyn, New York now. He says, he has an interesting answer too. Leo says, it seems like everywhere I go, I imagine myself living there. I even bought the domain ICouldLiveThere.com, but I never did anything with it. Recently, I've become somewhat obsessed with Nashville because so many musicians are moving there and it seems to be alive with fresh energy. LA, Portland, Montreal, Paris, Berlin, Madrid, and my hometown of Madison, Wisconsin have all captured my imagination, but the city I always seem to come back to is Barcelona.
Great city.
It's so beautiful, so alive with cultural energy, great food, beautiful people, close to the beach and mountains, centrally located in Europe. It's just an amazing place. And I have to say the Barcelona Olympics was really cool too. I was the one where the archer lit the torch with a bow and arrow, shot a flaming arrow over the crowd. I was like, that was memorable, man.
Cool.
That was cool. Okay, Tony Peters, host of Icon Fetch podcast. He says, I've never been overseas, so my point of reference isn't as large as I'd like it to be, but I fell in love with Charleston, South Carolina years ago. The combination of colonial houses and hip urbanization caught my eye. They used to have a really cool public market, but I haven't been back in years. So, one more vote for Mayberry. Not the South, I should have said. Let's see, Nikki Savitt. I think she's another spoonie. Come to us through the spoon. She says it's a toss-up between New York City, because I'm still trying to make a go in the theater world, and that is where it's at. Plus, it's freaking New York City. And Amsterdam, because I hear it's absolutely stunning and wonderful, and you can smoke pot in bars. Enough said.
Mm-hmm. And
So-
hash.
so
what
she-
about the hash?
She breaks it a little bit because she picks New York and Amsterdam. As people are trying to pick two things. Wait a minute.
We're like 52 questions deep into this. I can't be upset about it anymore.
No. Well, this next person says he wants to time travel via GIF. What do you think about that, GIF? It's trying to push your buttons over there. All up in there. Okay, let's see.
All up? Did you just say all up in there?
I did not. I don't know what you're talking about. What could you?
Where is this coming from?
Well, you made the sarcastic remark about them having pineapple in Hawaii, so
No,
I said,
it
yeah,
happened to
they-
be something that when I went to Maui, I had never seen so much pineapple in my life. It was
Well.
just everywhere I looked.
Well, they put pineapple and coconut in everything in Hawaii because that's what's native to there.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, and
Oh.
I love pineapple.
And you can put it wherever you want, everybody. Okay, so next.
Okay.
I actually think that would be extraordinarily bad advice when it comes to pineapple. It's quite acidic, and you
Yeah.
probably want to be very careful.
You don't want
about
to
where
just
you
put it
So, yeah.
I just mean
anywhere.
That
Yeah.
requires a lot of preparation.
Well, here's
Yeah.
here's what I mean. I mean, put it in the pantry, put it in the refrigerator. I don't know what all the dirty-minded people are thinking by putting it up in there, but that's all I meant.
Yeah.
Okay, the aforementioned Mrs. Ken Reed, Rachel Reed.
Rachel,
She says,
how are you?
She says, I choose to live in a spacious luxury treehouse on the outskirts of Los Angeles.
Well, I totally feel you on that. I think that's
I can see it now.
Yeah.
She says, why? Because the beautiful weather, beautiful views, and proximity to the Nickel Diner and hummingbirds. Okay, Tammy Florence. Another person via the spoon. She said she'd moved back to England. She says, as I miss my family. But I guess if I never left my homeland, I would say America, as I always wanted to live here as a kid. Cool accents. So I guess she's saying is when she's in England, she misses America. When she's in America, she misses England. I guess it's common for people. Randy Lavick, she says Honolulu, because it's close enough to California where my parents are, but I can actually afford to live there, and that weather agrees with me, 365 a year. And so do the people over there. They're so chill. If you're chill, they're chill. And then you have the military there too. So until the two sides start fighting each other, the natives and the Hawaiians, I'd be good and safe. So that's my first choice. And as we come into the home stretch here with one more, it's going to be Mr. C.J. Vanston, brilliant musician, local LA guy, former friends of Dan Guest. He says, I'd probably have a summer place in Norway and a winter place in Spain, just north of Barcelona. And, you know, people do the summer-winter thing. I mean, I live in Arizona. We have a whole population of what we call snowbirds. They come in the wintertime because it's so mild where I am, and then when the heat comes, they flee. So I'm going to do some recap stats here, but I was actually naive enough to believe that we would be able to knock out this in 2 episodes. Now it's definitely going to be 3 because we haven't got to Tom's question or Olivia's question. So we were going to be wrapping this up in a moment. But of course, I'm going to give some stats, and then let's not forget we got to get Tom's answer and Olivia's answer. But I've got a recap here. Hawaiian Islands had 9 votes. UK, I'm including England, Ireland, and Scotland, also 9. So London area and the Hawaiian Islands, basically European culture or the tropical thing. The greater Los Angeles area, in which I included Malibu, had 6. New York City had 5. Italy had 3. Washington State had 2 between Seattle and between Pullman. Stockholm, Sweden had 2. Amsterdam had 2. Barcelona had 2. And I won't recap everything else because everything else had 1. So everybody, thanks for those tremendous answers.
Thanks, guys. Great answers.
I'm going to turn to Thomas and ask him if, as a native of Salt Lake City, Utah, who came to Los Angeles, do I have permission to take Salt Lake off the table and make you choose somewhere besides Salt Lake in LA, or do I not have permission?
Twist my arm.
That answered my question for me. Okay. Tom, you can't live in LA. They send you a deportation notice. Where do you go and why?
It's tempting, of course, to break the question and say, but I love LA, and I do. I grew up in a place with seasons, very dramatic, full Technicolor, turned up to 11 seasons, and I've had enough of that. I can visit seasons as a tourist. I don't need them as a feature of my regular life. So I like LA. I like almost everything about this place. Having said that, I also have a real affinity for Oregon and coastal Oregon specifically, places like, and there are touristy places out there, and there are these sort of out of the way places. And if I were having spent my life in this kind of middle ground and then come out to a place which is very large and cosmopolitan, If I were going to make another change, it would be to something very small, like an Oregon coastal town. You know, when I go there for touristy purposes, so it's tempting to say something like, you know, Newport or Lincoln City or one of those places, but it would probably be something maybe a little more out of the way than that. Also, I have felt, as someone, I don't remember who it was, that said they had always felt a calling from London, I believe. And I always felt a calling from Scotland. I finally got the chance to go there 4 years ago. My family's from there. And I definitely, while I was there, felt an affinity. Especially the further out into the wilderness I got. When I was at Glencoe, I experienced something that was quite... I don't know what it was, but it was quite profound. And so Scotland is also my runner-up. It's my backup possibility if Oregon sinks into the sea or something.
Very detailed and specific and interesting answer. As I turn my attention to Olivia.
Paris.
You don't sound definitive about that. Do you need more time to think about it?
No.
I'm just kidding.
I love it. I love everything about it, from the couture to the food to the architecture to the climate to... everything's aligned. It's rare that you go to cities, and I've lived in New York, and I love New York, and I love London, but as far as a city, and can I have two, or is it just one?
Hey,
just one, I think.
This is Every Friday with Dan and Olivia. You have the power. You can have 10.
Well, it would be Paris or New Mexico. And New Mexico. I would like to live in both places because they're completely the antithesis of each other, and I feel very much in my element in both places, but it just speaks to me from different sides of who I am. I love the prehistoric elements of New Mexico. It really is the land of enchantment. I love the light. I love, you know, that there's a Navajo reservation in Taos where I grew up. I would just want to go back there and live there. I love Georgia O'Keeffe. She's my favorite artist. And then what I love about Paris, I already sort of mentioned, you know, plus my son is there, so now. But prior to him being there, it had always been my favorite city in the world.
I'm actually kind of surprised more people didn't say Paris.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe because of the most recent shootings there and what have you, because I think I know it certainly made me a little bit, had some trepidation about going there or my son going there, but it's it's interesting. I'm wondering why more people didn't say that, because it's gay Paris. I mean, people know it so specifically as a place that they would love to.
I'm also kind of surprised that only one person, which was Ed, went Japan. Didn't specify Tokyo, but New York, Tokyo, Paris. Nobody went Asia. Nobody went China. Nobody.
Japan,
Korea,
Japan
Singapore
would be such a great place to live.
I'm kind of surprised more people didn't say Asia, but I guess
then I think maybe people are
very exotic.
Yeah, or they're mentioning maybe places that they've been to and that they would like to go back to. And
that's something that I wondered about. If it was, how much of it was based on fantasy of, I've always wanted to visit blah blah blah. It seems like a cool place, versus someone who's been around a lot and has picked their favorite of places they've actually been. I mean, I'm not nearly as well traveled as you two are, and so I gravitated towards places I can actually picture and feel in my head, as opposed to I've always wanted to blah blah.
Well, it's interesting what people's agendas are, because some people mention the population, like they wanted a small population, and some people mentioned wanting to be off the beaten path. Other people said they want all the culture they can get. So, we all have our different sort of agendas.
I didn't mention the food in Paris too. It's just, oh my God, it's mouthwatering. It's so good. I mean, Italian food's amazing too, but yeah, it's just all sort of subjective, but yeah, French food's pretty darn good.
French cuisine, French restaurants, never heard of it. No, it doesn't ring
so
a bell.
meticulous about their approach to cooking.
But when you talk about France being all the culture sort of being aligned and sort of insular, but not necessarily in a bad way. I think that's interesting when people talk about these large population centers, as opposed to the folks who want to go to New York, which New York is very heterogeneous as an urban center. That there's all these cultures sort of scrabbling around trying to deal with each other.
Paris is kind of like that too, though. I think most big cities that you go to now, currently, it's pretty integrated. In Paris, like they have the 25 arrondissements, you've got the 7 arrondissements, all these different numbers of basically districts, right? And you've got like, not unlike LA, you've got like little Ethiopia. You've got like little different
Right.
countries within the city.
Okay.
In each arrondissement. So that's kind of the other reason why I love it. It's really multicultural. Like they have a Chinatown, the equivalent of like a Chinatown in San Francisco or New York there, and so there's something there sort of for everybody.
But I know someone who's considering moving to Hawaii or Colorado, and I was having a discussion with her about it. And for me personally, it's I like to visit but not live there kind of place. And so living there, I have a cousin who does live there. So a place I would live, I have to give my answer too, by the way, but a place I would live as opposed to a place I would tour. Like Shell mentioned all the things tourists do in England,
Yeah, but like once you've done that, then what?
Yeah,
Right.
you make sure you actually want to live there. Because my mother lived there, and you mentioned French food. English food,
not so good.
Not as famous. So I'm just saying, well.
Yeah, pub food is not even comparable. But it's also interesting, I'll just interject with that, it seemed that the answers kind of resonated with me, where some people are kind of coming more from the place of like, what would be a more stress-free life environment for them, such as Hawaii, Oregon, very much the same thing. New Mexico, much more so for me than Paris, I'm sure.
Right. But versus what would be exciting.
Yeah, you're getting off the hamster wheel, and so it's just interesting the different answers that we got. Some to me spoke more of that kind of stress-free life, or some spoke to more sort of honing in on people's careers and where they felt that they may have more opportunity.
True. And the Four Seasons issue, I mean, I grew up with Four Seasons. As a child, I lived in Germany, and I lived in New York, and I lived in Virginia, and we had Four Seasons. Then from 1978 forward, I lived in either Northern California or Arizona, where we really have... Arizona, we have two seasons, like hot and not as hot, basically. It's like there's no snow or anything. I don't miss it myself, but now that I have kids, sometimes I kind of wonder, if they're missing out on something by not experiencing the Four Seasons. For my own answer to this question, I have fond memories of the Garmisch-Partenkirchen region of Bavaria and the Black Forest, the Odenwald of southern Germany. People had mentioned before about feeling a particular,
affinity with the place.
As we established earlier in this podcast, I have a little German in me, all up in there. So it could just be there you go. Could be like a genetic thing pulling me back. I don't know. But I southern Germany. People think of Munich and areas like that.
Munich's great.
Yeah, I'd probably live there because it would be nice for me at this point to sort of re-experience some European culture, and also it's just a beautiful area. The Black Forest, and
the Black Forest is in Germany.
Yeah.
And then there's a place called the New Forest in England, which is a spectacular looking place. Where a lot of people kind of seem to want to live. They've got like Shetland ponies running around, wild horses running in the town, and it's just one of these places where it's kind of a newer forest that sort of just sprung up, and it's by the sea, and there's lakes everywhere. It's kind of like a Harry Potter-esque.
Nice.
Yeah, and everything we've talked about is interesting because where do I want to visit? Where do I want to live? The reason I thought of this question was last time we did this, I was identifying everybody by their first name and where they were. And that's just got me thinking about where all our listeners are, et cetera. So as we all know, you guys gave us 3 answers to 3 questions. We're going to come back next week, and we're going to talk to Tom about his question, your answers to his question. So we'll see you then. Thank everybody for contributing. We're not done with you yet. We're literally a third done with you. And this closing song, I think, kind of relates to what we've been talking about, certainly for many of us. So let's go out with that and see you soon. Bye.
See ya.